Hi, my name's Paul Killen and I'm here with my colleague Danielle Kingdon. We're both partners in the employment team at Osborne Clarke, and today we're going to talk about neurodiversity. Now, Danielle, diversity is something which I'm sure everybody watching this will be familiar with, but what's all the talk about neurodiversity?
Yes, we're probably less familiar with neurodiversity than other forms of diversity. It's sort of in its infancy a little bit, and I think there's a tendency for employers to see neurodivergent employees as being disabled, but they're not, they're just differently abled. And I think businesses such as technology, engineering, life sciences are the sorts of businesses that have seen the value that neurodivergent employees can bring to their business. They're particularly suited to that type of work, and when they harness those types of employee skills, they see massive returns in terms of productivity, creativity, thinking outside the box. So it is sort of new. There's very little guidance around at the moment as to how you deal with neurodivergent people and how best to get value out of them. We've produced a guidance just to sort of help, but it is in its infancy, but it is something that's growing, and I think people will see the full potential in due time.
Okay, that's really interesting actually. I like the idea of differently abled, because that, I guess, raises the question of what does it actually mean? What does neurodivergent actually mean?
Well, it covers a whole spectrum of things such as the terminology you'll be familiar with, so ADHD, autism, dyspraxia, all those sorts of things that are sort of neurological differences, if you like. And in fact, it always surprises people to learn that 1 in 10 people in not just the workforce, so employees that you might already have in the workforce, but customers, clients would be neurodivergent. So I think in early days there's always been has been a focus on the sort of challenges that those sorts of traits present. But people are waking up to the fact that there's some real advantage to securing more of divergent employees in the workforce and harnessing the good that they can bring. And so now there's more of a focus on looking at the challenges to looking at what positive aspects one can derive from a neurodivergent workforce.
1 in 10, I suspect a lot of people listening to this will be quite surprised at that high proportion. Having said that, of course, I mean, what we're talking about is people who are real assets to the employers that they work for. And
Absolutely.
Themselves, I imagine, as you said, differently abled, they wouldn't regard themselves as being disabled. I mean, in that context, is the Equality Act relevant?
Well, it is, in the sense that many of those traits do fall within a disability under the Equality Act. So employers will have the obligation to make reasonable adjustments and obviously accede to the requirements of that piece of legislation. But it's really not, it's going beyond what your sort of legal obligations are and looking more at the sort of positive things that can be achieved, but at the same time obviously making sure that you meet the requirements of the law.
So that's a really good point. This isn't about being defensive. It's not about looking at how do we protect ourselves from a potential legal claim here. What we're really talking about is getting the best out of what could be a very significant part of the workforce. So from that context, how should an employer go about doing that, attracting people from neurodivergent backgrounds and really getting the best out of them in the workplace?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is to make it very public that you're encouraging neurodivergent people to apply to your organisation, and for those that are already in there, that you want to work with them in order to improve things, make whatever adjustments need to be made in order to optimise the sort of value you can get from those particular employees. Then, of course, training is going to be always important, making sure that managers understand how to deal with neurodivergent employees, because sometimes they will need to be dealt with in a different way to non-neurodivergent employees. So training will be important. And also setting up committees, inviting neurodivergent employees to contribute to changes that need to be made, because quite often they will know the best things that need to be made in order to make life more easy and to maximise the opportunities for them. So really engaging with them and getting them to help drive things forward as well is really important.
Thanks very much, Dan. I hope that's provided a useful insight into neurodiversity in the workplace and how you can foster it and get the best out of employees in this context. If you've got any questions, obviously do get in touch with us. There are also a number of useful contacts that you can utilise, and these are shown on screen now.